Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take fascinating forces, pull them apart, and give you the insights that really matter. Today, we're diving into a really captivating book. It re-examines one of psychology's, well, most famous ideas, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Our mission here is to unpack how this foundational theory maybe got a bit misunderstood, and how a modern view can actually be a guide for your own journey of, health, growth, and even transcendence.
Yeah, it's really insightful how Scott Barry Kaufman, he's the author of Transcend, manages to weave together Maslow's original ideas with like the latest research. A lot of people think they know Maslow's hierarchy, that pyramid image, but as we'll get into, there's a surprising backstory to that visual, and honestly, a much richer, more dynamic way to see human potential.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if what you thought you knew about self-actualization was, well, only part of the picture?
Okay, let's unpack that right away. That pyramid, right? Everyone pictures it. Physiological needs down at the bottom, then safety, love, esteem, and boom, self-actualization at the peak. But here's the kicker from our sources. Maslow himself never actually drew that pyramid.
That's exactly right. If you look at the history, this Maslow's pyramid was actually cooked up by a management consultant back in the 60s. It just clicked with the whole post-war vibe, individualism, capitalism. It fit neatly into those like layered triangle charts businesses loved. But Maslow, he talked about something much more dynamic, integrated. Like we're always circling back to basic needs, drawing strength, learning from hardships, not just climbing a ladder.
So what does that actually mean for us? Does it mean it's not this rigid step-by-step thing where you have to nail one level before even thinking about the next?
Yeah. Precisely. That's the key insight. Maslow never saw it as a rigid game of levels. He really believed we can work on multiple needs at the same time. He acknowledged that basic needs can ebb and flow in salience across a person's lifetime. Think about people in really tough situations, like war zones. Obviously, survival is huge, but that sense of community, respect, finding ways to develop skills that can still be incredibly powerful, incredibly present. Like the consultant Susan Fowler said, people are self-actualizing all over the place, no matter what.
Wow, okay. That really reframes things. Now, Maslow also drew this important line between two kinds of needs. Deficiency needs, or D needs, and growth needs. What's the core difference there?
Right. So deficiency needs, the D needs, they're driven by a lack of food, safety, affection, self-esteem, you name it. When we're stuck in that D realm, as he called it, our view of things can get skewed. We might make demands like feed me, love me, respect me. And the bigger the lack, the more we might, bend reality or use defense mechanisms just to cope with the pain.
So unmet needs can literally change how we see the world. And this connects to something really interesting about Maslow's view of people. He thought humans were basically good deep down. He believed it was life's pressures, the frustrations that made people seem otherwise. I mean, he even wrote in a note, people are all decent underneath. Quote, all that is necessary to prove this is to find out what the motives are for their superficial behavior, nasty, mean, or vicious though that behavior may be. That was pretty radical for his time compared to psychoanalysis.
Oh, absolutely. That's his humanistic side really shining through. And it contrasts sharply with the growth needs. Growth needs go beyond just like chasing happiness. Becoming fully human, in his view, isn't about being happy 24/7. It's about living a full life, more meaning, more engagement, more growth. Seeking things like truth, beauty, justice, not just trying to avoid feeling bad.
Okay, let's dig into those foundational needs a bit more, how our environment, our early life shapes them, starting with safety. How deep does that need for security actually go?
Well, the sources show that persistent fear, maybe from discrimination, violence, neglect, it can have lifelong effects. It can actually change brain connections. There's this classic, kind of intense study on therapeutic starvation. They found extreme hunger or even just constant worry about food turn these compliant, optimistic people into impulsive, angry, even abusive individuals. It's a stark example of how basic survival instincts can just hijack everything else when threatened. Our genes prioritize keeping the species going, sometimes over higher goals like purpose.
That's wow. A powerful reminder of our shared humanity, isn't it? That under similar pressures, we might all react in very similar ways. It really challenges us to see hidden strengths, too, like kids in really tough environments who develop skills vital for that context, even if they don't score well on standard tests, they're adapting. Okay, so from safety, let's move to connection, another huge one. How did Maslow view connection, and what does modern research add?
Right. Maslow actually split connection into two things. A social protection system, which is about belonging, basically avoiding rejection, and an intimacy system for those deep, caring relationships. Modern research, like building on Ainsworth's early work on infant attachment, secure, avoidant, etc., it shows how those early bonds shape us. But, and this is crucial, the source emphasizes these patterns aren't fixed categories. They're on a spectrum. And importantly, they can change. Personal growth, sensitive partners, things can shift.
So our attachment style isn't set in stone. That's hopeful. What actually satisfies that need for connection then? Is it about having loads of friends or...
The research really points to quality. It's not just quantity or, being physically near people. There's that line in the source. Friends are worth more than a new Ferrari. It sounds almost cliche, but the data backs it up. Loneliness. You can't just fill that hole with money, fame, power, or even just general popularity. You need real, genuine connection.
a really strong reminder of what truly matters. Okay, related to feeling valued, let's talk self-esteem and mastery. What did Maslow see as healthy self-esteem? And how's that different from, say, narcissism?
Healthy self-esteem, for Maslow, had two parts. Self-liking, genuinely appreciating yourself, and mastery, that overall feeling you can actually do things, achieve your goals, your sense of agency. This is really different from narcissism. Narcissism often comes from parents kind of over-evaluating a child. And interestingly, it's linked to a pretty weak sense of self underneath, even imposter syndrome. Healthy self-esteem, though, that tends to grow with real parental warmth, and it fosters love not just for your in-group, but for people outside it, too.
That's a key distinction. So pulling these foundations together, safety, connection, esteem, what kind of life are we aiming for, according to this updated view?
It points towards what Kaufman calls a growth-driven life. This lines up strongly with self-actualization. It includes drives like wanting to perform well, achieve things, be creative, make an impact. But, and this is the big but, it also prioritizes meaning, personal growth, close relationships, and making a positive difference in the world. The implication is pretty clear. If your main goals are just money, status, power, you're not really pursuing self-actualization in this sense.
That really does sound like redefining success. Okay, with that foundation laid, let's step up towards purpose. Viktor Frankl's famous line, "Man's search for meaning is a primary force in his life." How does that fit in here?
Oh, it fits perfectly. Frankl's idea resonates deeply with this whole framework, and you see it play out. Think about someone like Greta Thunberg. Finding that huge sense of purpose reportedly helped her overcome some really serious personal struggles, like an eating disorder and loneliness, or even go way back 32,000 years ago. Those handprints in the Chauvet cave, that's a primal human scream saying, I was here, I mattered. It's this deep need to contribute something.
That idea of a primal need to matter.
Yeah, that's powerful. And Maslow noted that self-actualizing folks don't chase happiness directly, right? It's more like a side effect.
Exactly. Happiness often shows up as a byproduct of just working really well at something you find important. This idea of striving wisely comes up in the source. It's not just about having any purpose, but choosing goals that really help you grow, that feel authentic to you. What the source calls harmonious passion.
Harmonious passion, I like that. And this kind of passion often fuels curiosity, exploration.
Yeah, cognitive exploration. The source links this general curiosity, wanting information, liking complexity, being flexible with things like stress tolerance and, well, pretty much every aspect of well-being. It's about being curious even when things are confusing, trying to find new meaning, and creativity. For these explorers, it's almost a way of being. It involves both coming up with new ideas and being good at picking the useful ones. That flexible thinking, like Linus Pauling said, the way to get good ideas is to get lots of ideas and throw the bad ones away. Simple, but effective. Now, this path of growth, it often involves facing tough stuff, adversity. Something that stood out to me was that resilience after trauma is actually pretty common.
Yes, that's a really important point. Post-traumatic growth is possible, even common. The path there seems to involve really exploring your thoughts and feelings about it, letting go of those initial defense mechanisms. It brings Frankl back to mind. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, finding meaning in the struggle.
That's profound. So how do we face life's anxieties, the big unknowns, without getting overwhelmed?
Well, there's this concept, psychological flexibility, which is big in therapies like ACT acceptance and commitment therapy. It's about facing the world with openness, but acting in line with your values. It helps you navigate the tough stuff. It reminds me of that quote from Irvin Yalom's Patient. Something like, even though you're alone in your boat, it's always comforting to see the lights of the other boats bobbing nearby. That sense of shared humanity in the face of it all.
That's a beautiful image. Okay, building on this, Maslow talked about peak experiences, those moments of like pure wonder, ecstasy. He said they temporarily make us self-actualizer.
Right, our healthiest moments, he called them. And he found they were more frequent, more intense for people genuinely living that self-actualizing life.
And these often involve awe.
Yes, awe is often key.
Hmm.
That feeling triggered by perceiving something vast, something that stretches your mind, it makes you struggle to process it. It's this mix of like ecstasy and maybe a little bit of fear. And it's linked to openness, spirituality, not necessarily religion, but that sense of connection to something bigger. The source even mentions the research on psychedelics inducing these incredibly mystical experiences, reducing fear of death, boosting purpose. People rate those experiences as profoundly meaningful. They're even exploring using VR to induce awe now.
Wow, using VR for awe. That's
Oh.
wild. Okay, as we get towards transcendence, this idea of healthy self-loss comes up. Transcending your own self-interest to be part of a whole. How does that lead to whole love?
Whole love, that's Maslow's term for self-actualizing love, an enduring relationship that's, healthy, growing, transcendent. What's fascinating is Maslow found that self-actualizing people kind of resolve that tension between being an individual and being connected. They manage to be strongly individualistic and deeply altruistic, social, loving, all at once. They don't fear losing themselves in the relationship, that role engulfment.
That really flies in the face of some modern ideas about relationships, doesn't it? Like not needing to own your partner, as Esther Perel talks about. And there was that surprising link to social anxiety messing with sexual satisfaction because you're too busy evaluating yourself.
Right, that self-consciousness gets in the way of just being present and enjoying the moment. The source suggests integrating your sexual self harmoniously into your identity is really important for overall health and growth.
Which brings us to maybe the trickiest part, integrating the dark side.
Yet, the eternal question, are we good or evil? Maslow had that really provocative idea. Sickness might consist of not having symptoms when you should. Like his example of healthy Nazis with clear consciences, a chilling paradox. Rollo May talked about the daimonic in everyone, those potentials for both good and evil we have to reckon with.
So it's not about denying it, but acknowledging it. The source talks about a dark core to traits like narcissism, basically, callousness and manipulation, seeing people as objects. But it also offered some hope, right? That most people lean towards the light triad.
Exactly. Qualities like faith in humanity, treating people as ends in themselves, Kantianism, basically. This light triad orientation tends to lead to less chaos, more connection, more satisfaction in life. And this idea of a quiet ego is key for turning that loving focus outwards.
A quiet ego, what does that involve?
It seems to involve a few things. Detached awareness, like mindfulness, looking at things objectively, inclusive identity, feeling connected to others, breaking down us versus them thinking, and perspective taking, really trying to understand others' views, boosting empathy. It's about building healthy authenticity, not a fixed state, but an ongoing process, discovery, acceptance, taking responsibility, all built on that secure foundation we talked about earlier. That lets you really face the unknown, both outside and inside yourself.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, it really feels like becoming a whole person isn't a destination, but this continuous journey. Discovery, openness, courage, reaching for higher integration, more harmony inside and out, which gives you more flexibility, more freedom to become who you really want to be.
Absolutely. Like the source says, we're always becoming. And those principles, trusting your inner drive towards growth, aiming for growth goals, being willing to face discomfort, cultivating awareness, they aren't just theories. They're things you could practice every day. We've seen how facing our psychological fears, even our own warped thinking sometimes, can lead to incredible growth.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? I think this deep dive really highlights that self-actualization, transcendence. It's about bringing all parts of yourself together, the light, the dark, the secure bits, the growing edges. It's about realizing that even if you feel alone in your boat, like that quote, seeing those lights of other boats bobbing nearby gives comfort. That shared human experience is powerful.
And that provocative idea from the source. The best way to have a good death is to live a good life. It's about committing to higher levels of meaning, where things like contributing to the future, appreciation, inner peace, love, they take priority over just chasing fun or being purely individualistic or racking up achievements. Remember that image? One candle in a cave lights everything.
That is a powerful thought to leave you with. How can you cultivate that single candle within yourself? Shine it outwards, light up your own journey, and maybe, just maybe, help light the way for others too.
We really hope this deep dive inspires you to keep exploring. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep transcending.